The world is flat, we are told by Thomas Friedman's recent bestseller. And really, all Friedman's doing is extending the old cliche that the world has become a lot smaller. If you would, let's give in to that cliche for a second. It's become cliche, after all, because it describes an aspect of our experience, and that aspect of our experience is relevant to my topic today, which is presentations. The world is neither small nor flat, obviously. It's round and huge. Advances in transportation long ago gave rise to the cliche that the world is getting smaller. Friedman points to the huge leaps in communications technology that we've experienced to suggest that the world is getting flatter, because we can now communicate with anyone at really any time. So time and distance are no longer our enemy. Which should mean that the challenges of communication are no more. Yet they persist. Consider the articles published in the Harvard Business Review in 2007. Sure, there were articles about mergers and acquisitions and entrepreneurship and that sort of thing. But a third of the articles were about communication challenges, the challenges of making ourselves understood, change management, knowledge management, managing people, and sales. Making ourselves understood is still a problem, even in this era of instant communication. And these problems persist even though we have developed an incredibly strong tool to make ourselves understood to one another: the presentation. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I can't possibly be suggesting that presentations are often the way we make ourselves understood, but that is what I'm suggesting, and the sheer number of presentations we make proves the point. Microsoft claims that 30 million presentations using their PowerPoint software are given every day in the United States alone. They're not given for fun. That's 30 million attempts to reach someone, to solve a business problem, or to make a sale. Somewhere along the line, presentations became a fundamental method of making ourselves understood. And now you're thinking that I'm proving the wrong point. It's not that people don't make presentations, it's that presentations are bad, that they're a boring waste of time that can never actually accomplish anything. But good presentations can have a huge impact. Let's look at business first. The presentations that Apple's CEO, Steve Jobs, gives at the Macworld conference are always held up as examples of good presentations. And they are. They're so good, they're so important to the company that they actually have an effect on the price of the company's stock. On the left, you can see the average annual price change of the S&P 500 index from 1997 to 2007. So the S&P went up an average of 8% every year for that period. On the right, you can see that for the same period, Apple's stock went up an average of 6% on the day of the keynote alone. Those keynote presentations were powerful enough that you could either buy the S&P for the year and get 8% appreciation, or you could buy Apple for a day, get 6%, and then spend 364 days on the beach. And presentations can, of course, have an impact outside of business as well. Let's look at policy. There has long been a worldwide consensus on climate change, but it wasn't until a slide presentation that public opinion in the United States became galvanized. Former Vice President Al Gore had been doing his presentation for years, changing minds one audience at a time, but in 2007, his slide presentation found a larger audience through the film An Inconvenient Truth. The film galvanized public opinion. It shifted the debate in the US from whether climate change is happening to what should be done about it. The filmmakers won an Oscar, and Gore shared the Nobel Prize for 2007. He did it all with a slide presentation. Presentations can absolutely make an impact, and if you back away from the darkened rooms and the projected slides that are our experience of presentations to what's at the heart of a presentation, that makes sense. Because if you strip a presentation down to its essence, it's just one person talking to another person. That face-to-face, person-to-person contact has amazing power. Being there and saying something is meaningful. It's so meaningful that for our most important or our most difficult conversations, we expect them to happen face-to-face. There can only be one conclusion from all of this. Presentations done right accomplish their goals. But as a nation, we are making 30 million presentations every day without accomplishing our goals. We're doing them wrong. Every presentation has its own set of problems, and my company, 154 Consulting, is built to find and fix those problems. But this presentation isn't a sales pitch. It is a plea for all of us to make one small change in how we make presentations. And this one small change gets to the heart of three of the biggest problems with presentations. Those problems are boring speakers who do nothing but read their slides loud with their back to the audience, bored audiences who have read the entire deck during the first 5 minutes of the presentation because they can read silently faster than the speaker can read aloud, and the immense amounts of time spent getting all of the text and data and graphs of the presentation to look just right. Right now, at every major company in the world, there's a new employee wasting hours trying to get bullet points to line up properly. All of those problems come from a failure to understand that the slides projected on the screen during a talk are not a document. They can only be expected to add emphasis and color to the words that you speak. They should not be asked to serve as handouts or as summaries of your argument for those not able to attend the meeting, because they simply cannot meet the requirements of those tasks. Here then is the one small change we must make. All of us who make presentations must create 3 artifacts: the slides projected on the screen, handouts for the audience to look at during the talk, and a summary document to send with the audience after the presentation. Slides are hard to separate from the talk that you give. When I talk about slides, I'm really talking about the combination of what you say and what you show on the screen. Together, your slides and your talk should identify the decision you're asking the audience to make, explain the best course of action with supporting evidence, lay out what happens next, and put the decision in a compelling enough context that a person who's seeing the presentation both knows what to do and feels compelled to do it. The handouts that you provide to the audience shouldn't simply be a printout of your slides. They shouldn't even include a page for every slide you show. Handouts should consist only of those points or graphs or whatever kind of information you're showing for which more detail is required than can be projected on the screen. If you're presenting a company's financials, for instance, you might project only annual revenue growth in the screen, but provide a handout that includes a detailed breakdown of that growth in a spreadsheet. After the presentation ends, you should distribute a summary document that condenses your talk into a short memo. And the goal of that document is threefold. First, it reminds the audience of your argument. Second, it makes the decision that they should make clear. And then third, it makes the audience look good. If they agree with your presentation and they want to distribute it to others, the summary document provides compelling detail in a way that printed out slides never could. And they'll look smart for passing it along. This, then, is the one small change we must all make. We must realize that presentation slides are not a document, and that we must therefore produce 3 artifacts: slides, a handout, and a summary document, where now most of us produce 1. That one small change won't make every presentation great, but it will force presenters to think hard about what their talk is for, resulting in better arguments. It will keep audiences attentive and focused on what matters most. And it will mean that the impact of a good presentation spreads beyond the people in the room. I'd like to share a final thought, because I fear that many of you seeing this presentation are thinking something like, well, that's great, but I can't. My boss won't let me, or the conference I'm going to wants bullet points, or our company has a tradition of circulating the slides from presentations. Let's start with this. Your boss doesn't want you to be boring. Neither does the conference organizer. Both of them want you to make an impact on the audience, but they may be scared or unsure, and that means that you have to show them that this works. Try it a few times with your team, then roll it out to presentations to the division manager or whoever the big boss is, and then to clients. If you go to your boss and ask to make this small change together, it will go just fine. The larger problem is that part of your brain that's protesting, hey, it's just a presentation. We'll wing it. And we'll be fine. Making 3 artifacts is a lot of work, and we don't really need to do all that. To that part of your brain, I ask, did any of us dream when we were children that if we were very lucky, our career would trap us in boring meetings, or even better, allow us to trap others in boring meetings? We did not. We wanted work that engaged us, that had meaning. My request to you is this: stop waiting for someone else to make that meaning for you. Start with your presentations. Find the thing about your talk that's meaningful to you and make it meaningful for everyone around you. It will take a little more work, sure, a little less time looking at embarrassing celebrity news on the internet every day. But if we start with this one small change, what we're doing is taking a first step towards creating meaning from our work, rather than waiting listlessly for someone else to do so. Now, obviously, better presentations alone won't magically make all work meaningful. But given the horrible state that most presentations are in, there's really no better place to start.